It's March 1. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom Gale. In the headlines, Parliament's Standing Finance Committee begins its review of the 2022-2023 estimates of expenditure. Onion farmers form a watch program, and the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party have resumed the Vale Royal talks. Parliament's Standing Finance Committee began its review of the recently tabled 2022-2023 estimates of expenditure today, March 1. The $912 billion budget was tabled by Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, on February 10. Revenue is estimated at $749.8 million. They're estimated to earn $671.5 billion from tax revenue. Dr. Clark has hinted that the government does not intend to introduce additional taxation during the debate. However, there are concerns.
Some of the assumptions in the budget and some concerns that some of the assumptions that have been made are not realistic given what is happening now both locally and globally. I would start with looking at the projected oil prices. In the projection for 22-23 is an average oil price of $67.5 per barrel. When this would have been tabled, oil prices were already in the early $90 and they're now $95, and there's a fair bit of volatility given the issues in Ukraine. Last year, when you tabled the budget, you had projected oil prices at $45 per barrel. They have ended up at $73, which is about 50% higher than the projection. So my first question to you would be, what impact has the differential in the actual oil prices versus the projected had, particularly on tax revenue collections and the balance of payments?
At the end of the day, though average oil prices were elevated in comparison to what the average was assumed to be, we ended up in a positive current account situation and a very healthy balance of payments position.
Meanwhile, the finance minister says Russia's attack on Ukraine will affect the government's financial projections and inflation.
The war that is underway in Ukraine, and with the impact that is likely to have on commodity prices, at least in the short term, it is quite possible that inflation could be, for the fiscal year, could be higher than is in this assumption.
Following the SFC's review of the estimates, the Auditor General's response will be sent to the SFC, which will review the issues over at least 2 days, March 1 and 2, before sending its report to the House. Onion farmers in St. Thomas have formed a Farmers' Watch program to help them stem the increasing incidence of Praedial larceny in the parish. The move follows a meeting between the farmers and representatives from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries recently. It is estimated that Jamaican farmers suffer losses of more than $5 billion per annum due to Praedial larceny. Onion farmers in St. Thomas are calling for more to be done to secure their investment, describing their product as a major part of the country's agricultural sector.
All farmers in the area losing their onion. The onion is the most important thing in Jamaica right now in this area. And why I say that? It is hard to raise, expensive to grow, pesticide, everything.
It's not the thief that coming from out the road, down poor man's corner. We have to open our eyes and look on our farmers too. Because some of them are very thief. Thief. I have to buy my fertilizer very expensive. And we have to provide security-wise. Why they can't plant, why they plant and still have to go in it. It's not the thief that come from Morant Bay doing this. We have to open up our eyes.
If we don't produce 10,000 tons of onion we have to import. The difference, it costs approximately $1.2 million to produce 1 acre of onion under proper irrigation. So when you look at the yellow cereal and the farmers involved and the amount of female involved, you know there's a lot of sacrifice being made. And farmers, you need to work with the police and you need to work amongst yourself to protect your investment.
This farmer says economic loss is not her only concern.
The chemicals that are used on the products are very, very deadly. They are cancer causing, and it affects you mentally. And you see my hands. Does my hand, it will do your inside. And you'll be in the farm and they see you spraying with a pan on your back. And tomorrow morning when you go there, the crops are gone.
These farmers are just a few of the representatives that met with Rural Agricultural Development Agency's parish manager, Bevan Martin Dickinson, and members of the police force to discuss the way forward.
We cannot be everywhere all the time. Already we carry out regular operations aimed at apprehending or dissuading Praedial thieves. These operations occur on any given night within the parish. However, we are going to be asking that you participate, partner with us, and actively participate in the process of keeping your farms safe.
For this strategy to work, we are hoping that all hands will come on board so that we protect each other. When you work for each other, then the benefits will be for all farmers that are now producing onion or mangoes or whatever it is that will be attacked by these Praedial thieves.
Government is embarking on a major project to curtail crime and violence in vulnerable schools and communities across Jamaica. The Violence Prevention and Targeted Vulnerable Communities and Schools in Jamaica program will be spearheaded by the Ministry of National Security. It's receiving $7 million in funding support from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang signed an agreement formalizing the arrangement on Friday with Charge d'Affaires at the EU Consulate in Jamaica, Don McIntyre. The initiative seeks to enhance the relationship between youth at risk and members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, particularly the Community Safety and Security Branch. The Ministry of Education and Youth will provide support for school-based activities, and the Justice Ministry will facilitate synergy with its child diversion and restorative justice programs. Dr. Chang says the agreement is intended to take a completely different part in addressing the chronic causes of crime and violence in Jamaica.
The essence of the security plan is to coordinate the agencies of government to deliver to the at-risk population the service that will improve their standing by restoring their dignity, giving them hope, and allowing them to achieve some success in life.
The governing Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, and the People's National Party, PNP, have resumed the Vale Royal Talks. The talks resumed on Sunday, February 27. A release from the Office of the Prime Minister states that Prime Minister Andrew Holness and opposition leader Mark Golding led their respective delegations in talks on national security, constitutional reform, health, and Jamaica's 60th independence commemorations. The 3.5-hour dialogue was hosted by the University of the West Indies. For his part, Prime Minister Andrew Holness noted that, quote, "It is important, particularly in our form of democracy, where two political parties dominate, that there is a means by which both political parties can meet and discuss issues affecting the nation," end quote. Mr. Golding committed to approaching the Vale Royal talks from the standpoint of, quote,
openness and good faith with frank and open discussions, end quote. He furthers, quote, "It is within that context that we hope to reach a level of understanding of the approach that guides the PM's actions, and hopefully we will find common ground in moving forward to achieve a safe Jamaica," end quote. The dialogue was guided by the Chatham House rule, and both sides engaged in full and frank dialogue with a shared commitment to reaching consensus where possible and obtaining a better understanding from which to move forward. On February 25, 2022, the PBC Jamaica team visited the Halfway Tree and Dunrobin primary schools to view their Jamaica Day celebrations. Carla Thomas Hewitt has more.
Jamaica Day has been celebrated in schools for over 10 years. It is celebrated each year as part of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information's effort to instill the spirit of nationalism, which is necessary for the social and cultural development of Jamaica.
Happy Jamaica Day!
In 2011, our Governor General Sir Patrick Allen proclaimed that the last Friday in February should be celebrated as Jamaica Day unless there are adverse circumstances. And so this year, the 25th of February, we are indeed celebrating that day. Now, Jamaica Day is a day that we put aside when we highlight, when we showcase everything that is Jamaican.
This year, we visited 2 schools that celebrated Jamaica Day under the theme Celebrating Jamaica, Building Character, Hearts Through the Arts.
In light of the theme that we selected, we want persons to focus on positive values and attitudes, and for them to use, for the public at large, and notice I say public at large, which means that not just the schools are a part of the process, but also for the wider public to focus on, positive values and attitudes.
The Halfway Tree Primary School celebrated Jamaica Day via the online Zoom platform, with a few students on the compound dressed in their Jamaican colors.
This is a long time, girl, me never see you. Come make me hold your hand. This is a long time, girl, me never see you. Come make me hold your hand. Peel and Janko, sit down, patch it up, pick out the blossom. Let me hold your hand, girl. Let me hold your hand.
Jamaica Day is when we come again and we unite ourselves as Jamaicans because we are one. We come together on Jamaica Day to celebrate different aspects of our culture. We come and we celebrate, we share different historical artifacts and persons that mean different things to us, like Miss Lou, Bob Marley, and we have our iconic persons that developed our culture, and that's what I think Jamaica Day is about. We come together as one and we can all find something that we can familiarize ourselves with.
Despite the pandemic, the Dunrobin Primary School played its part in the Jamaica Day activities by engaging students and teachers in a Jamaica Day showcase where they sang, danced, ate traditional Jamaican food, and had different cultural and historical artifacts on display.
Chairman of the Combined Disabilities Association, Reverend Deacon Arthur Taylor, is calling for increased public education on support systems that will enable disabled persons to be independent. He was speaking on PBCJ's program, A Different Life.
Know that for a person who is blind, they would need to be taught how to operate with a cane, how to use the braille writing, how to use the assistive technologies. Those who are hearing impaired or deaf would certainly need to be taught in the area of sign language. Those who are experiencing things like autism would have to have the support of a shadow, especially in extreme cases in educational institutions. There are some persons who are not able to do things for themselves, but at times be at home or in an institution, they need the kind of support for persons to be there to assist them along. Those who are using a physically challenged would certainly need the use of the different aids to get them to move as we go along. Okay. So it's varying, and it's international or global. All disabled persons pretty much have the same needs. We look at the area of education, and we can talk about employment. How do we get the place of employment to provide the assistive aid that these persons might need to function? They have the skill, they are qualified, but would definitely need the assistive aid to facilitate them to do that. Okay. So we need to inform our workforces, employees, employers, that they too will be aware and to be able to provide for these aids.
Reverend Taylor was a guest on PBCJ's A Different Life. It's a program that gives us a window into the world of persons living with disabilities. It airs at 10 a.m. on Sundays. You can also watch the weekly episodes on our YouTube channel. Time now for a look at today's foreign exchange and oil prices update in the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
In foreign exchange trading for Monday, February 28th, the US dollar sold for an average $155.60. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $122.23. The pound sterling traded for $208.67, and the euro sold for an average of $178.64. In Monday's trading session, the following reflect the movement of the JSE indices. The JSE index declined by 70 points to close at over 390,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 26 points to close at over 3,000 units. The combined market index advanced by 170 points to close at over 400,000 units. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 1,395 points to close at over 444,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 111 stocks, of which 44 advanced, 50 declined, and 17 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Variable Preference, and Access Financial Services Limited. Stocks declined for Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, CAC 2009.5% Cumulative Redeemable Preference Shares, and Caribbean Cream Limited. Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares was the volume leader with over 6 million units, followed by Future Energy Source Company Limited Ordinary Shares with over 3.6 million units, and Spur Tree Spices Jamaica Limited with over 3 million units. In market data for oil, oil prices surged on Tuesday as concerns continue over supply disruptions after Russia's invasion of Ukraine and related sanctions outweighed talks of a coordinated global crude stocks release. Brent crude futures were up $4.02 or 4.01% to $101.99 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up $3.24 or 3.38% at $98.96 a barrel. And that was the business report inside the news on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, we begin in St. Lucia, where health officials have recorded declining COVID-19 numbers. This comes as the country navigates a fifth wave of the virus. Sulej Alfred reports.
Health officials and the population appear to be turning the tide in the punishing fifth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar George says St. Lucia's pandemic figures continue to fall.
This past week, we continue to register low numbers of cases. The 7-day average approximation continues to indicate a steep downward trend in the epidemiological curve. We note reductions in most of the public health indicators.
The CMO says health officials now look to integrate aspects of the COVID-19 response into the general functions of the healthcare system.
This will facilitate the strengthening of the other public health and primary care programs which have been reduced due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Moreover, the public health official notes that changes are on the horizon for a number of facets of public health response and overall management of the pandemic.
The isolation, quarantine, and testing protocols have already been communicated. The changes to contact tracing, home monitoring, vaccination sites, and respiratory clinic location changes will be shared this week. Most of the other services have been restored to normal operations. We appeal to all organizations, both public and private sector, to ensure the strengthening of all of the public health protocols.
The AstraZeneca vaccine, which was temporarily unavailable in St. Lucia, is now back on the menu of life-saving options. But Minister for Health, Moses Baptiste, says vaccine hesitancy remains an impediment.
The vaccines have an expiry date, and we would not go beyond that expiry date. It's unfortunate that there are cases where there are times where we would have to dispose of vaccines that have passed the expiry date. But just this morning, I just came from a ceremony, and the United Kingdom government donated 10,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine. So we now have AstraZeneca vaccine, and it is for us to encourage as many people as possible to get vaccinated.
Jean-Baptiste says the resolve of the public will be tested in the coming days, as civilians are called upon to take personal responsibility for their health, as St. Lucia looks to further revise the health protocols. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
In Barbados, government has announced that it will be moving to clamp down on the unruly behavior of some public service vehicle operators. More details from Barbados today.
In response to a strong call from St. Thomas MP Cynthia Ford for authorities to bring order to the roads, Minister of Transport, Works and Water Resources Cynthia Bradshaw disclosed that her ministry was in the process of fine-tuning regulations to govern the public transport sector that was approved by Cabinet more than a year ago. She said the regulations would give the Transport Authority more teeth to address the challenges.
Immediately after the estimates, it is my intention to be able to bring those back with a view to giving some teeth to the Transport Authority so that the enforcement that is now necessary to take place, that they will now have that going forward. But the concerns are very real. I think the general public is very acutely aware of the issues on the roads. The regulations will speak to a number of the things which drivers are required to do, but it also places an onus on the owners of the vehicles who for a long time have been pretty much in the background and have in a sense been able to escape being identified or even having the permits taken away because of the errors being made by their drivers. And so the intention is to be able to start to clamp down to ensure that the drivers are properly trained. We've been in discussions with the Barbados Community College to ensure that the standards that are required, that those persons who are currently drivers will be able to participate in that program when it is rolled out. Also that persons who are new entrants as public service vehicle drivers, that those persons also will now have to undertake a course of training before they are unleashed into the public as well. And so that process has already started in terms of identifying the persons who are necessary to train the individuals, but also having those discussions with the stakeholders. And I would anticipate that very shortly we would be in a position to roll that out.
In Trinidad and Tobago, a 5-member panel will be established to investigate the tragic events that led to 5 divers, one of whom has since been rescued, being trapped in a pipeline offshore at Port-au-Pierre last Friday. Kimberly D'Souza has more.
I want to inform the population that we have taken a decision that there will be an independent investigation carried out by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries.
An assessment into what led to 5 divers being trapped in a 30-inch pipeline just 1 mile offshore in Pointe-à-Pitre on Friday will be done soon. This is according to Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Stuart Young, who said the investigation will also determine what took place during the incident, a critique of the situation, and recommendations for future operations. Minister Young said the team will include a representative each from gas companies BP and Shell. These companies will also choose independent professional experts to complete the investigative team.
I've also identified that we need an expert professional diver who has had sufficient experience in these underwater dives to do with oil and gas installations. And then we'll leave space for another person with the expertise to fill that scoop.
Minister Young said the committee will include a lawyer to provide a legal perspective and may be chaired by one of the permanent secretaries at the ministry. On Friday, the country learned that 5 divers were trapped in a pipeline owned by Paria Trading Company Limited that contracted the divers from private company LMSC Limited. One of the divers, Christopher Boudram, was rescued. But Minister Young confirmed on Monday the other 4 divers, Faisal Kurban, Rishi Nagasa, Yusuf Henry, and Kazim Ali Jr. have not been located. At this time, the men are presumed dead. While efforts continue to find the men, Minister Young said the public should not be swayed by speculation as to the speed of the recovery operation or the equipment used to locate the men inside the crude oil pipeline.
Fellow citizens, at this stage, respectfully, it is not for any of us to be playing judge and jury on anyone. This, without any doubt, is a tragic accident and one that we all wish never took place, but unfortunately it has.
Minister Young expressed condolences to the families of the men and encouraged Paria to provide all that is needed to assist the grieving families at this time. Kimberly D'Souza, TTT News.
The grieving relatives of the 4 divers who are presumed dead and who are still located in a 30-inch crude oil pipeline since they were reported missing last Friday gathered on the compound of Paria Fuel Trading Company on Monday. The wife of diver Rishi Nagasar, Vanessa Cassie, is still keeping hope alive. Her husband and the other divers are found safe.
Because I am speaking not only for myself but all the family who is going through this ordeal right now. I don't wish anyone to be going through what I am going through right now. It is hurting.
On Sunday, Paria said the recovery operations would include using a water displacement method to move the bodies out of the 30-inch submarine pipeline. But Ms. Cassie said the company did not consult with the families before making that decision.
The divers are willing to go down and still take them out one by one. Please do not flush them out. They will come out in pieces. We are pleading to them. We are begging them. They're not listening.
Ms. Cassie said she found out about Paria's decision after Sunday's press conference. She said her husband had been complaining that the company did not have the proper equipment for the men to do their jobs. Last year, her husband was injured during an explosion at Paria after he was sent to save some of the divers at the site. Her husband, Mr. Nagasar, had been employed with LMSC Limited for over 30 years. Meanwhile, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Stuart Young, said the government is using all its resources to assist the rescue teams in locating the missing men. He offered condolences to the families.
In sports, Jamaica's young Reggae Girls are still basking in their 3-0 win over Cuba in their second Group H contest of the CONCACAF Women's Under-20 Championship on Monday. The win saw them provisionally assuming pole position on 3 points, same as Haiti and Guatemala, who were scheduled to meet in the late contest, but with a slightly better goal difference. This means the Jamaicans are on the verge of securing one of 3 spots from the group, but will need to better Haiti in their final group game on Wednesday if they are to finish at the summit. And that's the news. Thank you so much for making it PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.